Man, when in the summer of '74, their future drove up in the person of Ronald Bon Scott.
Cut this.
It was kind of weird. He pulled up in this old, beat-up 50s car, you know. You could barely see. You just saw this sort of maniac head and this, you know, this crazy guy coming flying down the road.
I'm hot, and when I'm not, I'm cold as ice.
Like the Young brothers, Bon Scott was another Scottish immigrant raised in Australia.
When we met him for the first time, it was like we'd known him forever. No with Bon, no with us guys. He always became a brother.
Bon was a headstrong, wild child, bound and determined to be a rock star.
All he wanted to do was be the singer in a band. You couldn't stop him once he made up his mind. That was what he wanted to do, and he just did it.
Bon dreamed of fame, but found trouble instead. By 1974, he had already served jail time for assaulting a cop and had recently survived a near-fatal motorcycle crash. Bon had already burned out in local bands like the Valentines and Fraternity. To Malcolm and Angus, Bon looked and sounded like a perfect fit for AC/DC.
We knew Bon could sing rock and roll. And from that point, we kept pestering him. You know, would he like to come and sing?
See me right out of that sunset.
We just said, do you want to join? Without even playing with the guy. That's how confident we were that he was going to work with us.
'Cause I'm TNT, I'm dynamite.
Angus and Malcolm had no doubts about hiring Bon Scott to front AC/DC.
2 weeks later, we show up and we go, George, we've got a new singer. And he goes, what?
Big brother George felt his little brothers had lost their minds.
And Bon had a knee ring with a shark's jaw, I think, hanging off. It was about this big. Lost a couple of teeth from brawling, covered with tattoos. He looked like he'd been around the block more than a few times.
You know what I mean?
George was like, there's your man, no doubt. He says, that's reshaped the whole thing. You're a real rock and roll band now.
Had formed a band and found a frontman. 28-year-old Bon Scott was a perfect fit for AC/DC, a hard-rocking, hard-living dynamo. His first appearance with the band was an omen of hell-raising to come.
The first gig, you know, he's got a bottle of bourbon and that's, he just juices it all, you know, and then he's got, you know, there's drugs and everything coming in. And I said to Malcolm, I said, he'll be lucky if he can walk, let alone sing, you know.
Bon Scott's behavior may have been shocking, but his performance was electric.
All you got to do is let me in behind.
And we heard his voice proper then, and thought, geez, that guy's got some voice. He can scream, a great melody, he's got great feel.
AC/DC had found their voice. They went into the studio to record their debut album, and in January of '75, the band took their high-voltage act across the Australian club circuit.
They were the Aussie bloke's idea of a good time. It was just hard and down and fast and mean. Rib-crunching, skull-crushing, sort of blistering rock and roll. And you know they weren't going to slip in a ballad on you.
Having conquered Sydney's music scene, AC/DC relocated to Melbourne and retooled the group's lineup.
He said, I ain't spending my life here.
Bon Scott's voice had raised the band to another level, but there was room for improvement.
The first High Voltage album had been released, but they were still looking to sort of secure the permanent band members.
In early '75, drummer Phil Rudd joined the band. End the debauchery.
We were living in this house for 6 months. Still the best days of our lives. There was more action going on there than ever since. We drank like it was no tomorrow. We woke up and drank again, and we just continued on like that for a long time.
The party continued that spring when AC/DC's cover of Baby Please Don't Go went top 10 and became their first nationwide hit.
Baby, don't go! Baby, don't go!
That April, the band made a notorious appearance on Australian television as Bond gave new meaning to the phrase, dress for success.
I'll never forget it. On Countdown, Bond dressed in drag, you know? I mean, that was unheard of back then.
Bond's drag act served to further AC/DC's raucous reputation, and by the summer of '75, they had a gold record and a growing fan base in Australia.
AC/DC had a young audience, male and female, adoring this band.
Riding on the highway, going to a show. Stop.
But as AC/DC's second album went to number 2 in Australia, the band had no intention of remaining local heroes. In early '76, they scored a deal with Atlantic Records to release their music internationally. That spring, AC/DC boarded a plane to London, looking to conquer the world.
I think it was inevitable that AC/DC were going to outgrow Australia. There was a whole world waiting for them.
Their fast and furious style was a hit in London's burgeoning punk scene, and AC/DC was soon headed cross-country to rock the rest of Great Britain. Their reputation as the rude and rowdy band from Australia preceded them.
I think they thought I was some sort of male stripper at some point. I think I played one marquee nude. I didn't know that, you know, what they arrest people for that? I didn't know.
AC/DC came to be considered less a band than a band of outlaws. On stage, AC/DC did everything they could to shock. Off stage, they got serious about their music, working with Angus and Malcolm's older brother George, who produced their next album, Let There Be Rock.
Let there be guitar.
Me and Malcolm said, well, we really want a lot of guitars, you know, big guitars.
Released in the summer of '77, Let There Be Rock blasted onto the U.S. charts. AC/DC were on the verge of becoming an international hard rock phenomenon.
Living easy, living free.
In January of 1979, AC/DC began work on an album called Highway to Hell, a title the record company hated from the start.
And they freaked with that title. They didn't want that title.
And I said hogwash, you know. We're calling it Highway to Hell, and that's how it is.
I'm on a highway to hell.
When Highway to Hell hit record stores that summer, its title spawned rumors that the wild men of AC/DC were devil worshippers. But to AC/DC, Highway to Hell was a tribute to the hard life of a touring rock and roll band.
If you'd have been on the road with us for those years up to that point, you would have known exactly what we were talking about.
After 6 hard years on the road and in the studio, AC/DC's grit and determination were finally paying off. Bon Scott was enjoying the high times. Only for Bon, the high times were even higher.
We go back to the hotel, we say, oh, Bon, you know, it's 3 in the morning, you know, we've got to crash, we've got to go. And oh, just one more drink. And we'd wake up in the morning, Bon, wake up, oh. And you get up back onto his drink. Oh, where were we?
Where they were was on the rise. Highway to Hell raced